The palace walls didn't shake, but they may as well have. Behind the polished marble, beneath the grand chandeliers and formalities, a war was quietly erupting. And it wasn't about power, not entirely. It was about legacy, envy, and a woman who refused to be forgotten. Camilla's reflection stared back at her through a gilded mirror, her expression poised, but her thoughts razor sharp. The headlines were shifting. William, the golden heir, was being picked apart one whisper at a time. She hadn't needed to lie, not outright. A carefully leaked story here, a vague tip there, and suddenly, doubts about the prince's past were swirling like storm clouds. She'd waited years for this, a quiet, patient revenge cloaked in protocol and pearls. Meanwhile, William was unraveling. The latest tabloid had hit like a sucker punch. Future king or fabricated icon. The story was vague, laced with old incidents half remembered and twisted into something sinister. No facts, just insinuations. But it didn't matter. The damage was already done. Online forums exploded. Commentators dissected every photo, every word he'd spoken in the last year. His reputation was bleeding out in real time. Kate watched it all unfold from the sidelines, her calm hiding a simmering fury. She knew this wasn't accidental. She had spent enough time inside the palace machine to recognize a planned takedown when she saw one. The timing, the coordination, it all reeked of someone on the inside, and in her gut she knew exactly who it was. Camilla had always worn her crown with practiced ease, but beneath the surface was a bitter truth. Diana's memory haunted her, not just in the tabloids, but in every glance that lingered longer on a portrait than on her. William, with Diana's eyes and the public's loyalty, was a walking reminder that Camilla had won the title, but lost the love. Now she was setting fire to that reminder. The palace wasn't a home anymore, it was a chessboard, and Kate could see the pieces moving. At a diplomatic event, one of William's old acquaintances brought up a long-buried story, an innocent university mishap twisted into something questionable. Another guest chimed in, connecting dots that didn't belong together. It was orchestrated humiliation dressed as small talk. William smiled through it all, but Kate saw his knuckles turn white as he clenched his glass. Every comment was a dagger wrapped in silk. Later that night, William stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open, questions eating away at him. Was he truly fit to be king? Had he failed to rise above the shadow of his past? Had he already lost the trust of the people? Kate didn't answer his doubts with cliches. Instead, she brought him a folder filled with press clippings, but with names. Names of staff who had attended secret meetings, snippets of conversations overheard in corridors, and one particularly telling email chain. All roads led back to Lord Harrington, Camilla's most loyal strategist. She hadn't gone public. She didn't need to. She had allies, and they were willing to do the dirty work, but exposing this wasn't enough. Kate knew how the game worked. Camilla wouldn't flinch at accusations without hard evidence. And worse, she was doubling down. Rumors were starting to shift again, this time about William's mental state. Subtle phrases like visible stress and erratic behavior crept into news articles. A reporter even asked him during a charity visit if he was coping well with the weight of expectation. It wasn't curiosity, it was bait, and the worst part, it was working. William, usually calm and composed, had begun snapping at his advisors. He missed a briefing, he lashed out at a photographer, and the cameras caught all of it. Camilla's plan was moving faster now. Kate knew they had to stop it before it became irreversible. But to fight back, they'd have to go deeper. And dirtier. A manila envelope lay on the table between them, untouched. William's fingers hovered above it like it was something radioactive. Inside were the original drafts of the articles that questioned his stability, drafts that had been altered before publication. Kate had managed to convince a staffer to leak them. The changes weren't minor. Mentions of mood swings, outbursts, and isolation had been inserted, all painting a picture that simply wasn't real. But the handwriting in the margins, the initials in the metadata, they all pointed to the same source, Harrington. Office. Kate paced the room. They're trying to make you look unfit. First, it was your past. Now, it's your mind. William sank into the chair, rubbing his temples. It's working. No, it's not, Kate said sharply. Not if we don't let it. But the whispers were turning into open questions. At a recent school visit, a journalist cornered William in front of the cameras. "How are you managing the pressure, sir? Any truth to the concerns raised in the media?" The question was asked with a smile, but the knife underneath was clear. That night, Kate met with Jane, a retired palace aide who had served under both Charles and Diana. Jane had seen power games before, but this was something else. "It's surgical," she said. "They're not trying to destroy him all at once, they're trying to make him implode." She gave Kate a name, Elena, a royal correspondent with an impeccable track record and a surprisingly close relationship with Camilla. If you want the source of those stories, that's where you start. Kate arranged to meet Elena discreetly, choosing a quiet cafe miles away from central London. She arrived first, dressed simply, blending in with the regulars. Elena arrived 10 minutes late, dressed like she was still on air. Blazer, heels, full makeup. At first, she was defensive, insisting her stories were backed by anonymous sources inside the palace, but as the conversation wore on, Kate shifted from confrontation to curiosity. "Why write about William like that?" she asked, calmly sipping her tea. "You don't even believe it. Who told you that?" Kate asked. Elena said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. Back at the palace, Camilla was unraveling. She'd severed ties with Elena the moment she sensed a leak. Her calls were unanswered, her messages read and ignored. Elena had realized the truth too late. That she wasn't a partner, she was a pawn. Camilla met with Harrington behind closed doors. "Tighten the narrative," she snapped. "We're not finished." That same evening, William received a summons from the Royal Council, an emergency session. The topic, his fitness to serve. He knew what it meant. They weren't just talking about postponing his ascension. They were considering removing him altogether. The weight of that hit him like a stone. Kate found him staring at a blank page, trying to write a statement for the council. "What can I say that hasn't already been twisted?" Kate placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then don't speak to them. Speak to the people." She pitched the idea, a live press conference. No scripts, no spin, just William as himself, standing in front of the world and telling the truth. He hesitated. "What if I fail?" "You won't," she said, "because for the first time, you'll be the one holding the pen." The next morning, the palace announced it, a live address from the prince. The kingdom braced for what was coming, and so did Camilla, but she wasn't waiting. She had one final move to play, a forged file crafted by Harrington, designed to look like a breakdown in William's private communications. It was ready to drop. One push of a button, and the prince would be unrecognizable. The podium stood under harsh white lights, cameras blinking like a swarm of mechanical eyes. William approached in silence, every step a battle. Behind the curtain, Kate watched, her hands clenched, jaw tight. No royal speechwriter had prepared him. No rehearsals, no filter, just truth. He looked into the lenses, his face pale but steady. "I've made mistakes," he began. "Not because I'm unfit, but because I'm human." The room froze. Advisors shifted in their seats, reporters whispered. "I was raised with duty etched into my spine. Every word I speak is measured, every move dissected. But today, I speak not as a prince, but as a man tired of silence." He spoke of grief, of losing his mother to tragedy and his father to distance, of the impossible standards he was held to, of how pain had made him stronger, not weaker. "I am not perfect, but I am not unstable. I am not dishonest, and I will not let lies define who I am." By the time he stepped off the stage, the silence had turned into a stunned hush across the kingdom. Commentators fumbled for takes. Some called it brave. Others doubted his sincerity. But for the first time, the public saw William not as a headline, but as a person. Camilla watched the broadcast from her suite. She didn't blink. Harrington stood behind her, holding the forged file. "Shall I release it?" "No," she muttered, eyes locked on the screen. "Not yet." But the council was already shifting. Their emergency session grew tense. The members were divided. Some felt the speech was a desperate ploy. Others felt it was the first honest moment they'd seen from any royal in decades. That night, William returned to his study. A folder sat waiting. Kate had found it hidden in Camilla's office. an old wooden box containing a letter written in Camilla's own hand. The ink was faded, but the venom still burned. It wasn't an official note. It was personal, raw, emotional. In it, Camilla had written of her envy, of how Diana had haunted her long after death, of how William, with Diana's eyes and mannerisms, had become a symbol she couldn't erase. They see her when they see him, the letter read. Not me, never me. William read the words once, then again. He said nothing. Kate placed her hand on his arm. This is it. The next day, the council reconvened. Camilla was summoned. She arrived with Harrington, composed as ever, but Kate walked in carrying the letter. She didn't speak theatrically. She simply handed the letter to the council chair. This is the truth behind the campaign against my husband. Not politics, not patriotism, just bitterness. Camilla stood, her mouth tight. This is a violation of my privacy. One of the members looked at her coldly. So is attempting to destroy your stepson with forged evidence. For the first time, Camilla faltered. Harrington tried to intervene, but his voice fell flat. Kate then presented Margaret's testimony. The servant who had been threatened, coerced, and eventually gave up the forged email Harrington planned to release. It was a complete takedown. One piece at a time, every lie was pulled into the light. The council's verdict came swiftly. Camilla's influence was revoked, Harrington was dismissed permanently, William's position was reaffirmed, stronger than ever. As they walked out of the chamber, Kate didn't smile, she just exhaled. Later that evening, William found her in the garden, seated beneath a tree. He knelt beside her, resting his head on her lap. I thought I'd lost everything, he whispered. The fifth act ends with William saying, but you fought harder than I ever could. She smiled softly. I didn't fight for the throne, I fought for you. They sat there under the stars. No cameras, no council, just them. And for once, everything felt real.